Welcome back to the Peach Pod After Dark, Booze Meisters. I am Jeff, and I don't think it matters what I believe, only what I do. And joining me on the other end of the internet is my co-host.
I'm Leslie, and I'm a Methodist. He's a Methodist. God's a Methodist. Can't go wrong.
Can't go wrong with that many Methodists involved.
Nope, really can't.
So, in case you didn't read the name of the episode when you clicked on it, we are doing 42, the biopic of Jackie Robinson, starring Chadwick Boseman, pre Black Panther.
Yeah.
So, stunning. I mean, his performance is pretty great. We've chosen this episode to go along with season 2, episode 1, Beach Blanket Brandon. We initially, our thoughts were obviously Beach Blanket Bingo, because that's what they stole the name of the episode from. Mm-hmm. But you didn't want to do that. And primarily, I assume, because you wanted a movie with a hero almost as impressive as Brandon Walsh.
Not exactly.
No,
close. Not exactly, okay. But close. I just really did not think we were going to be able to get any interest in people listening to us talk about Beach Blanket Bingo, because I can't even get people my own age to listen to Peach Pod yet, or anything about Beverly Hills 90210, and Beach Blanket Bingo is even older than that. I don't know if anyone my age, or definitely not younger, knows who Annette Funicello and the other guy is. Sure. I never remember his name. Frankie Avalon. That's it.
Yeah. So you decided let's go more current and talk about a baseball movie set in 1946.
I decided to pick something. As I was watching it, I went, wow, Leslie, you're really showing your true colors by picking something hella heavy.
It is pretty heavy, and it's interesting timing in that we just recorded season 2, episode 9, Ashes to Ashes.
Yeah.
This is more thematically linked to Ashes and Ashes to Ashes than it is to anything else. But the spelling connection for this episode is James Pickens Jr. Good old Henry Thomas, boss at the Beverly Hills Beach Club, who we meet for the first time in season 2, episode 1. And he plays I don't know, does he own? I guess he owns the house that Jackie Robinson stays at when he's in the minor leagues trying to make the Montreal team. Yeah. So, and he's great. And, you know, he has a couple of really cool scenes on the porch and hanging out. And then when the white guy comes to tell them that maybe it'd be better if they weren't there when the other white guys show up in a few minutes, he listens, and Jackie Robinson hits the road in the middle of the night. So this movie, it's a pretty straight biopic, right? Of a very small sliver of Jackie Robinson's life, right?
Yeah. We get hints and comments on like other parts of his life, which I think are really well done. Like when his child is born, you know, we get a little bit about how he was raised. We hear about his time in the Army when other people are talking about him. Like, it's kind of written like a play in that way.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff that has to be delivered by actors in order for the audience to understand obvious shit. Mm-hmm. You know? And that's how you get his backstory. You know, it has to be sort of told to you in dialogue of some sort.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting. And one, Chadwick Boseman is great. And I don't know anything about Jackie Robinson as a person. You know what I mean? Like prior to seeing this movie. And I mean, it's a biopic. So again, tiny sliver of life. but I know, broke the color barrier, first black player in the major leagues, played for Brooklyn, won the World Series. Without question, the most important athlete in the history of sports, in the United States for sure.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to say that worldwide because it's a pretty specific social ill that his inclusion in Major League Baseball addressed, and helped, advance against. But, and I don't know how much people in, I don't know, Switzerland care about 1950s or 1940s Major League Baseball, and the color barrier and all of those things. So I can't say like worldwide most important athlete ever, but definitely in the United States, I don't think there's a close second.
Yeah, I think you can speak better to that than I can. Just because I am not a big sports person. The most I know about sports, unfortunately, actually, I don't know if it's unfortunate or not. It's why sports movies are geared to people like me, because I'm not a sports person, but I grew up on Rudy and Hoosiers, League of Their Own. Like that's as much as I know about sports is from those movies.
Gotcha.
Yeah. If they did more musicals about sports,
right,
I'd be on it.
So damn Yankees.
Yeah, like I know the baseball season is 6 months.
Yeah.
Because of that show.
There you go.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I was trying to think of another sports musical.
I mean,
I'm happy I came up with one. I mean, pat on the back for me. High School
Musical does a lot of dance numbers in the sports arena, but other than, getting your head in the game,
right?
I didn't learn anything about baseball from that movie.
Well, I mean, I feel bad because you know what I forgot?
Oh,
Grease 2.
Oh! The bowling scene?
Yeah, I mean, the movie is, I mean, it is built around bowling and sex, but mostly bowling and sex. And so there's definitely a sports musical, Grease 2. So and
a little bit, yeah.
We love that. We're playing with some format stuff here, Boozmeisters, as we start season 2 of the Peach Pod After Dark, because we're trying to figure out a way to have these conversations in ways that interest us.
Yeah.
And a little bit how the sausage is made. We've only recorded about half of season 1 of Peach Pod After Dark, but we're deep into recording season 2 of the main show, but we haven't dropped season 2 episode 1 yet. So we thought, it'd be kind of cool to have a Peach Pod After Dark episode ready when the regular Peach Pod episode is ready, so we can drop them both at the same time, which meant skipping the back half of season 1 of the After Dark and then going back and picking it up, in bits and pieces later. And so we figured season 2 is a good time to, play with the format a little bit, try some different things, see if we could put our heads around this concept, because it's much broader than doing an episode by episode recap of 90210, right?
Well, and go ahead.
No.
I was just going to say, I realized earlier, I think I have a hard time talking about things that I enjoy because I don't feel like I have the language a lot of times to explain why, even though, quite frankly, I'm sufficient with, like, I liked this thing.
Right.
Know?
Yeah.
A lot of, like, it's kind of how I always describe Kurt Vonnegut to people. I'm like, I like him. I know I'm supposed to. I just don't understand quite why yet.
Sure.
And I've gotten pretty comfortable, too, with the fact that some things are, I'm not going to know why I like it or it's not going to hit me until later on.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to challenge myself to trust myself a little better, like that, I do know. I mean, did study theater, so I would like to think that I know how to critique some things.
Mm-hmm.
And if not, I'll bounce ideas off of you and you'll fill in,
Yeah.
you know.
See where we go.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is an interesting one for me because I've not seen this movie before. And you had.
Yeah. This is my second viewing.
Yeah. So I had never seen it, and it wasn't like I wasn't interested in seeing, I guess, is what it comes down to. Because I think that, I guess to recap the movie, which is what, the segment that we're sort of in the middle of, Jackie Robinson is brought from the Negro Leagues to the Brooklyn Dodgers organization by Harrison Ford. And he quickly, advances through the tryouts to be on the Montreal team, and then just as quickly moves from Montreal to Brooklyn for the start of the next season. They do a lot of smushing timelines and stuff, or like just condensing things because it's a movie.
You do. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to do that stuff. And they show him playing baseball a little bit, and clearly he's an amazing baseball player. Like, he's a base stealing wonder. He can hit the ball. He's really good at getting in the opposing pitcher's head, if this movie is to be believed. I mean, but the big thing is he integrated baseball. He was the first black player in the major leagues, and what he had to overcome to do that and to continue doing that for the course of a 9-year professional career that included like 6 All-Star games and a league MVP and a World Series championship. The amount of racism he had to overcome it's understood but glossed over, sort of historically.
Yeah.
Like, I grew up knowing, and I'm not a huge baseball fan. Baseball's fine, whatever. Games are too long. I don't have enough time for 4-hour baseball games. But I knew who Jackie Robinson was from an early age. Like, I don't remember a time when I didn't know who he was and what he did, and that post-war America was not a racially equal time or place. It was terrible. And him going through this and integrating baseball, being the only black player for, I'm not sure when the second black player came in, but it was probably the next year after.
I looked up historically, and it said that it's believed that Mr. Rickey had like a couple other black players hired. They just weren't in the major leagues yet. Gotcha.
Yeah. Okay. And I mean, then they make points to say this in the movie. This opens the floodgates. Like it's not like he's going to be the only one. So there's going to be more black players. So white players, get used to it and maybe step your game up if you want to keep your job. Like, But the things he had to, it was never expressed to me explicitly the types of prejudice that he would have to face. Mm-hmm. Obviously, I don't know. Like, we know that, in the 40s and 50s, there was segregated everything. There were segregated hotels, there were segregated bathrooms, segregated water fountains, segregated lunch counters, segregated parts of the bus. Like, all of these things were split. And I know that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? True. And I understand from listening to stories of musicians at the time, I can play on the stage, but I can't stay in this hotel. That kind of stuff was rampant. So of course he would have to face that, like that. I don't know. It's base level institutional racism. Like it's. But go ahead.
I was just thinking, because the thing we forget, we think it's so cut and dry that like the South is where all that was happening.
Right.
But like when he's going around to places as northern as Philadelphia, he's experiencing it. Like Philadelphia was a big place for runaway slaves to go to, or newly freed slaves to go to. So again, I just wasn't expecting them to have that much trouble in Philadelphia or Pittsburgh. You know, Cincinnati too was also a bit of like, oh shit, because that's our backyard.
Right. I mean, it's easy not to know how racist Boston was in the 70s, but like go back and watch and read some things about school integration in the 70s in Boston. Yeah. It is frightening. So yeah, it's not just a Southern issue, it's a nationwide issue. And one of the things I thought that they did a good job of exploring a little bit in this movie, and everything has to be done in tiny little pieces, but exploring the racism that he would face in his own locker room with the guys on the team signing a petition to say, we don't want to play with him. And a couple of guys getting traded because they would rather not play with him. So, and those guys, of course, like when you get the title card at the end, those guys are shown like how bad things went for them. And everybody else who was kind of nice to them, you get shown when they were in the Hall of Fame or whatever.
Yeah.
Which is a little silly, but whatever.
It was a little heavy on showing like, see, when you're racist, you get punished. And it's like, I wish it was that simple. I really wish it was. It's not. I'm glad in this case it was. Or at least they made it seem that simple. Yeah. Again, we don't know the exact timeline.
Right. And also, like, you know, what else those players did, or, you know, like, it could be like this player who we saw in this movie being nice to Jackie Robinson, made the Hall of Fame in 1967, also used to beat his wife. Like, they didn't tell us that part. You know what I mean? Sorts of stuff we don't know about the people involved in this. We're only shown this little piece. And I think that is, like, I still don't know anything about Jackie Robinson as a person after watching this movie.
That's true.
I know that this was hard, and, you know, and they did a good job, I think, of showing many of the ways in which it was hard. And, you know, especially the Alan Tudyk as the other manager, just that scene is hands down the most impactful and effective part of the entire movie.
Unfortunately.
Because, but it's also not enough. Like, it's brutal how much he spends that entire scene every time Jackie Robinson comes to the plate, how often he is screaming the N-word.
Yeah.
And every other racial thought you could have.
Other one.
Yeah, he was putting it all out there. And obviously the point is, we need, as an audience, to see how brutal this could be for him. Not that it was like this every game.
Yeah.
But it was like this some. And where they undersell it is that they only show you the first year.
Yeah.
Because it's not like year 2 was gravy. No. You know, he didn't have a year where he didn't face racism in baseball. I say, not knowing anything specific.
Yeah.
But he retired in 1956. That's 8 years before the Civil Rights, like the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Like, that is deep, deep Jim Crow shit.
Yeah.
And I mean, there are lynchings frequently. And I mean, that obviously that's what they're hinting at, you know, at Henry's house when, you know, that old white guy comes by, that, you know, that there's a mob coming and they've got a rope. That's, you know, and we saw the scene where was it Pee Wee Reese who had the death threat?
Yeah, not even a death threat. It was people calling him names. And then I
Right.
love Harrison Ford just gets out 3 fat files and says,
Yep.
excuse me if I'm not, worried about one threat.
Yeah. Yeah. And they didn't say it there, because what I thought at first he was pulling out were death threats he had received.
I did too.
Because obviously he would have also gotten death threats.
Yeah.
But clearly they were the death threats that Jackie had received.
Yeah.
And I'm surprised there were only 3 binders.
I am too.
But I mean, I guess at a certain point, unless you're going to have Mildred or whoever wheel in a cart full of legal boxes, you gotta draw the line somewhere for dramatic effect.
The FBI probably had a good amount of them. No, but the FBI probably had a fair amount of those letters as well.
For sure.
Going back to the Alan Tudyk scene, the scene that follows where Jackie breaks the bat
in the hallway. Yeah,
it's weird to say it's my favorite. I would say it's my most impactful.
It's
the most impactful for me, because I don't think in movies about facing adversity, you don't often get to see the person going through all of that. You don't get to see them break. Yeah, you don't get to see them freak out. It's like they have to be the model minority all throughout the film, and it's like that's not real. These people, they're humans too. They're emotional beings, like stronger than you and I will ever be.
Right.
Like, and there's a moment later on too that I want to talk about in that scene, but I'm jumping ahead. But yeah, I mean, it's pivotal in that sense, and I think while this movie might. I know it didn't grab you because it's like a baseball movie, but I think in terms of biopics and facing adversity pics, this is showing a good trend towards better writing, I feel, in them,
Yeah, I know. This movie grabbed me just fine. Like, watching the movie, I enjoyed it quite a bit. I wasn't interested in it when it came out because I knew the story. Broad strokes. You know what I mean? And I don't really feel like I know any more of the story after watching this biopic than I did before. I just saw examples of shit that obviously happened to him. And not necessarily exact representations of I don't know that Philadelphia game was like, this happened in one game. Like, it probably did, but it probably happened in thousands of games.
Oh, probably. Yeah.
It wasn't just so I don't know more about him as a person, really, from watching this. And that's why I was like, I'm torn on why you make this biopic this way, because you're not learning more about the person at the heart of it. You're seeing the person react.
Yeah.
But the movie starts with him, it's like one scene, and then he has the meeting where he's going to be called up to the major leagues. So you don't see any of his life before that, where he's, in the war, or when he's playing in college, or when he's playing in the Negro Leagues. We're just sort of told those things happened. And so we pick up from him not as a person, but as a baseball player.
Yeah, I feel like they took the route of, we're going to assume this is all people want to see.
Right.
I didn't look up when this movie, what time of year it came out, because it could easily have been Oscar bait. But I also feel like if it had been more, if they had shown more of his life and
Mm-hmm.
more of who he was as a person, then that would have been more like Oscar baity.
It also would have been 6 hours long.
Well, yeah, and it's we did the Glenn Miller story on here, and we got like so much stuff about his life that we probably didn't need. Like, I just watched Maestro recently. That also had, I'm not going to say stuff we didn't need, but it's a long movie. It's good, but it feels it. And
yeah,
I like that they took the parts here. Would it have been cool to learn more? Absolutely. But unfortunately, I think they figured people only want to know about the baseball of it all.
Yeah, I think that's probably true. And I think that
They did the same thing with Selma.
Yeah.
Which maybe then that speaks to a bigger problem, which is making stories about, famous Black people, and they only give you a certain amount of time.
Yeah, I mean, this is why I'm conflicted, because if you're going to tell the story of Jackie Robinson, of course you tell the story about him breaking the color barrier in Major League Baseball. That's the most important thing he did in his life. That's the most important thing, as we said, that any athlete has ever done. Mm-hmm. So of course it's the focus of the movie, but I already know that.
Yeah.
Like, so why do we need to do a biopic about it? I mean, obviously it brings it forward to a new generation and exposes this generation to the story of Jackie Robinson and how it was in fact difficult. But that's the other part of it that I usually, when you watch a biopic, it sets the events of the story in a moment in time that are specific and impactful to the story. And you may look at it and go, I had no idea that that's what it was like when XYZ happened, because that's different than now.
Yeah.
And it is different now. Like, this kind of racism doesn't exist, but a lot of kinds of racism still exist. A lot of really present day racism shit exists. And I want to come back to this when we get a little bit later when we talk ESTs, because there's some stuff that ties to the present day that is interesting to me.
Okay.
But one of the so I don't know, I don't know, since I stopped myself mid-thought there, where to go with that, but it just doesn't seem like we're not learning about a period in history that's vastly different than our present day.
Yeah, unfortunately.
And we're not learning any more about the person in the center of this. I mean, some, but not a lot. And we're not learning any more about what he did. In fact, we're seeing much less than what he did. Like,
I really think it would have behooved them to show more of his time at war. Because that seems like it was very significant in how people later on chose or thought about bringing him on. Because, I mean, they mentioned in the film, like, oh, he's got a temper. And it's like,
right.
for speaking out against segregation, like, that's not a temper. That's...
Right. But I mean, all that stuff is important because it's what's his name in this movie? Branch Rickey?
Branch Rickey.
Yeah, Branch Rickey. This is not like, I mean, there's that scene where he tells like why he's doing this, and that like he did, he had a black teammate that he didn't stand up for, and he feels bad about that, and blah blah blah. And maybe that's true. I don't know Branch Rickey, but I do 100% believe the part of the movie where Branch Rickey says, "We're doing this to make money."
Yes.
Like that. This is driven by green, not by black or white. It is driven by green, and it's the precursor to the famous thing that Michael Jordan said when, people wanted him to be more overtly political in his, they wanted him to stand up and say things. And he said, Republicans buy sneakers too. And that's why he was never out there, because he was in the business of the Michael Jordan business.
Yeah.
And growing a global brand and not wanting to alienate half the population, because he saw there was a market, right? Yeah. That he could exploit, quote unquote. Like, that's what you do with markets. You exploit them to make money. And that's Branch Rickey sees a market.
But
half of Brooklyn.
But I believe all of his reasons. I like that they keep coming back to it, because on one hand, if they only gave us one, there are going to be cynics about any answer he gives. There are going to be those who don't believe. I think all of those reasons have a weight of truth.
Yeah, and it's complicated why people do the things they do.
And that's what we need more of, because it makes him less of a blatant white savior in this film.
Right.
So, but yeah, I appreciate the fact that they brought up money first. It's like, that's behind everything.
All of it. Yeah. I mean, this is something that I've heard Tony Kornheiser say a million times. The answer to all of your questions is money. And I go back to that all the time.
I feel like you said that to me.
Sure that I have, because it's true. Like, the answer to all of your questions about everything is money. And so it's good that they put it right on Front Street in this movie. Like, yes, this was a financial thing. Like, you don't make this move if you think it's going to torpedo your baseball team.
Yeah.
Like, you want to win the pennant, but also you want to make money. And, I think that's really important. And I'm glad that they shone a light on it.
Yes.
Or shone a light, or shined a light. Whatever words I didn't say. The next segment is Adventures in Intimacy.
All right.
And I'm going to let you tell people what this is, because, people have heard you, if they've listened to either of the shows, talk about the importance of intimacy coordination and coordinators and the like. And you said to me, we could talk about this with literally every movie. And I said, then you know what? You do it, because this is your thing. And if I want to hear it. So let's talk about Adventures in Intimacy for 42.
Okay. Gosh, where to even begin? First of all, I am of the belief that in a perfect world, in a perfect future, every theater, every film production will have an intimacy professional of some kind. They're just that important. We have had, I say we, I haven't been here the entire timeline of human existence, but there have been choreographers of various kinds. There have been intimacy people working on these projects for years and history in film and stage, but of course they haven't had a light on them until now, and they haven't had the title until now. So just acknowledging that from the get-go. And most movies, even following, the Me Too movement, still don't have intimacy professionals on staff. It's still very unknown. I would say the most the most recognition it's gotten is from shows like Bridgerton. Shout out to Shonda Rhimes. But I think intimacy is a huge umbrella that has many spokes. And, to quote one of the intimacy professionals I've trained with. And so, to list a few moments that I noted in this movie that I think, first of all, I just want to say too, I thought the intimacy in this movie was good.
No, good.
I don't know if it was from discussions with the director and the actors, or maybe the stunt coordinator helped out. But either way, there was clearly a lot of thought and consideration put into certain moments, like when Pee Wee Reese puts his arm around Jackie Robinson. Like, whether or not that historically happened, like, that's still a significant thing. You still need to, like, make sure it makes sense. You need to make sure the actors are comfortable. Obviously, Jackie and Rachel are significant. Like, those are the most obvious scenes that people are going to think of when I mention intimacy. But I think my favorite moment in this movie was actually when Ricky gives a side hug to Jackie after he's had his emotional breakdown in I don't know what you call that in sports, but in theater it's a vom. He leaves the dugout. And there's like a hallway area.
Oh, just back to the clubhouse.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I've never heard that vom before. I've never heard that.
Yeah. In theaters, there can be voms that like lead out from the theater into the auditorium or out of the auditorium. Anyway. But that moment when, because I thought it was so interesting on many levels. Because on one level, you can't help but see Harrison Ford in every role. Like, he's just one of those actors that, like, he's talented, but I think he's also good at putting putting his natural personality into each role. And so it was weird seeing him hug someone for some reason.
Yeah.
And, you can't help but think in this era, there would have been like hyper awareness on homophobia or hyper awareness about being perceived as gay.
That was certainly part of the scene where they're talking about the shower.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a side hug was an interesting choice here. I wasn't sure how realistic it was, but it came out so natural that I didn't really care.
Yeah.
And I thought,
and by the way, the Pee Wee Reese thing is real. Like, that's a real thing that happened at Cincinnati in a road game. Yeah. So go ahead. I was looking it up. I assumed that was real.
I did too.
Because of the way that they like made a real big point of like posing it exactly. It's probably the exact way that the picture looks if you find the picture online somewhere.
Yeah.
So I was just double checking, but yeah, it is a thing that happened. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
No, it's okay. I just, but yeah, so my personal favorite one, and one that was probably decided between the actors, is that moment between Ricky and Jackie. And that's the kind of thing that like, it can naturally happen, but sometimes actors need that guidance to follow their natural instincts. When you have, probably not so much, guiding natural instincts within reason, of course. Like, don't be Sean Bean out here.
What's Sean Bean up to?
Just blathering on about how he feels intimacy professionals inhibit natural instincts, and it's like,
gotcha.
You can still use it within reason, and as long as you have talked to the other actor, like. I'm gonna go off for just a brief second, but then I will come back, I promise. Like,
bring it.
In Napoleon, the recent movie, with Joaquin Phoenix and Vanessa Kirby, they both agreed and gave each other consent to push each other, like, as actors, and of course, they actually slapped each other. Who knows what else they actually did? It's not my cup of tea as an actor. It's not my cup of tea as someone working behind the scenes. Like, if I was on a set where the two actors, consented to do something that maybe I don't care for, I can do one of two things. I can trust the actors to know their own limits and, tell other people involved, like a stage manager, director, like, okay, we need to make sure this still stays in reason though, because we have other people's feelings to consider here. Or I would leave the project. Like, you know, you can't force your beliefs on everyone. You know, like that's what art is, you know. It's a group of people coming together to share a vision, and if my vision doesn't match yours, then I probably shouldn't be on it.
Yeah. No, that is reasonable.
one of my more reasonable thoughts as
that's right.
Lady. But yeah.
So yeah, our first adventures in intimacy, Leslie is reasonable.
That's the first time anyone has said that.
T-shirt, Leslie is reasonable.
I hope that made sense. Thank you for going on this journey with me.
It 100% did. I think this movie is not one where there's like love scenes and things like that, which I think is what most people think of for that kind of thing. The need to like coordinate the intimacy. But it's interesting to hear you talk about those aspects, like just the hug aspect, the side hug, the choice to do whatever, like this or that. I think it's not a thing that people consider in great, like the movie going public doesn't think about that so much. So it's interesting to hear that perspective for sure.
I mean, the majority of what I've coordinated at this point is mostly like what people would consider not intimate, but it's
okay.
Intimacy. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very cool.
It's fun.
Yeah. All right. Well, that was Adventures in Intimacy. Do you want to venture with me into the Needle Drop Forest?
I do.
Where we talk about the music of the piece. Did you have a specific piece of music in there that you were interested in talking about, or was it like the Constitution of Australia, just like the vibe of the thing?
I think just the vibe of the thing. I did note earlier I happened to be watching the credits to be a good a good podcaster and know who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And in the process, I was gifted with that delightful song about Jackie Robinson.
I didn't watch the credits, but I did see that there's a song called like that. Did you see that hit that Jackie or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, it was peak 1940s writing a
novelty song.
Yeah, very cute, kitschy. Had a nice little when he.
Of course, yeah, you gotta have that. You gotta have that noise. Yep. No, that's funny. I didn't even hear that song, but I did see it existed. And all I saw was the title, and I know exactly what that song is. Like,
look out, Jackie.
I've never heard that song, and I can hear that song in my head right now. I know exactly what it is.
Oh, yeah.
That's fun. The one thing I noticed about halfway through the movie was for a 20th century period piece, I expected more music of the time to punctuate or to be playing in the background. Like I just, I would have expected someone to be listening to the radio and have whatever song come on more than it did. So because there were only a couple songs that I even noticed when I heard them. And then I went back and checked the songs that are credited for the movie. And, there's a Nat King Cole song.
Yes.
That is of the time, for sure.
Yeah. Where was Glenn Miller in the background?
I know, right? Well, I mean, gone, obviously, by the time, we don't know where he was. He was, Straighten Up and Fly Right. That's what they played from Nat King Cole. And they also played Don't Get Around Much Anymore, which I have a very fond spot in my heart for. Do you know that song?
I do.
Yeah, it's a good one. Duke Ellington, and it's been covered by like a bajillion people. But like of the songs but I don't remember hearing that in the movie. Like
I don't either.
It might have just been an instrumental piece in the background or something, but I don't remember hearing the song. And I was sort of looking for more. But it was a choice that they made with the music of the movie that they were going to do it this way. which worked. It just wasn't what I was expecting.
And I think there could be two reasons for that. The most obvious one being money.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second one maybe being music is sometimes seen as a break,
Mm-hmm.
maybe to give you like a reprieve from this moment.
Yeah.
And maybe that's something they didn't want to give us in this piece.
Yeah.
Which you still could have found many songs from that era that weren't going to give you a break. I mean, Strange Fruit.
Oh, sure. Yeah, yeah. The other thing I was thinking when you said that is that, like, maybe the choice not to play a lot of music of the time was an effort to unmoor it slightly from that moment and make it more timeless. Like to not put in, big notable hit songs of 1946 and instead, do them sort of more subtly as score, or something like that. Like maybe that it puts it there enough, but leaves it free to not feel dated.
Yeah, that's true.
Possibly, I don't know what the thought process was, but it's possible that it was something like that. But it was definitely a choice they made, not to, be like shaboom, shaboom, whatever. Yeah, I mean, they could have chosen the songs that they played in Clue. That was set in 1954.
But we can't hear those songs without thinking of dead people being used as props.
That's true. Yeah. Oh, it's a free country. Don't you know that?
I didn't know it was that free.
Okay. So I don't have a whole lot more to say about the music of the film, other than I really enjoy Don't Get Around Much Anymore. I just really like that song. It is a good song. The next category, and we've done our typical job of jumbling shit all up as we talk about it, but we wanted to give ourselves a chance to talk about any theme that we saw in the movie that we wanted to explore a little bit. And, in the same way that we talk about what is this episode really about when we're talking about a 90210 episode, we could talk about what is this movie really about. And obviously, the theme of this movie is racism. Yes. I mean, but to me, like, it's more than that. It's broader than that for me, in that it's about breaking barriers.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what he's doing. The barrier he's breaking is a race barrier, but he's breaking a barrier.
Yeah.
And this is another thing that I thought was so oddly timely about watching this movie, and Chadwick Boseman being the character, or being the actor to play Jackie Robinson.
Yeah.
And it's that because of a complicated combination of motivations, money, and feeling like he didn't, stand up for his black teammate, and feeling like it was wrong to be running baseball the way that that it had been run, prior. And, whatever feelings he had about, like, integration across the board, or, civil rights or whatever, Branch Rickey made this decision to break the tradition of this institution that had been around at this point for, I don't know, 50 years. I don't remember when baseball started. I feel like it was in the 1890s, maybe a little earlier than that. But finally putting a black person in this industry.
Mm-hmm.
And fast forward to 2018, whenever it was that Black Panther came out.
Yeah.
And how difficult it was for Marvel and Disney to finally release a movie that starred not only a black superhero, but also a predominantly black cast.
Yeah.
And how hard it was. Like, I've been listening to the audiobook called MCU, The Reign of Marvel Studios. And it's an oral, it's not quite an oral history of all of the MCU. And they had wanted to do more than just white superheroes named Chris earlier. You know, I mean,
yes.
But I mean, if you look at those first bunch of movies,
no, I know.
You know, it's white superheroes and it's white male superheroes in no small part because girls don't buy action figures, quote unquote, and you can't open a movie, a Hollywood movie that has a hundreds of millions of dollars budget with a black star.
Yeah.
And that was the belief, and Marvel had to convince people. And, you know, people within Marvel had to be convinced in the same way that people in the Dodgers and in Major League Baseball had to be convinced. And that was 80 years ago. And it's the same shit now. It's just a different industry that had to be dragged kind of kicking and screaming into a not just white dude's world. And the fact that Chadwick Boseman is centrally located in both of those stories, to me, is interesting, and it doesn't feel super coincidental.
Yeah.
You know, not that he was cast as Black Panther to do that, but
it's like they forget that everyone is paid the same kind of currency in this country. Like,
right.
We're certainly not all paid the same amount.
Right.
You know, but like, you know, to think that a movie with a predominantly black cast or Asian cast or Latinx cast, like to think that that those groups aren't going to also see movies.
Right.
It's so stupid.
It's preposterous.
So I think one of the themes behind this movie is money. You know, like
yes, of course. Yeah.
Behind any big change is money.
The answer to all of your questions. Yeah, it is. Yeah, no, that's a theme of this movie is how money is the economic. It's the driver behind much social change.
Which you would think that would help people from a certain party like that more.
No, because you're taking the money from them and giving it to somebody different.
Oh. Okay.
Yep. I mean, I'm no expert in the civil rights movement, but Martin Luther King wasn't killed until he started talking about unions. Oh. Like when he started talking about the money, that's when he was no longer able to talk about anything. So you can talk about voting rights and all of that, but when you start putting your hand in the rich man's pocket, that's when things stop working so well. Fuck. So I'm not sure that that's a coincidence. So
we're gonna be
downer fucking situation here, but this doesn't quite fit in the. You know what? It kind of does. It fits in the themes a little bit. And it's not a theme of the movie, but it's how they chose to explain things. Mm-hmm. Because somebody has to say this stuff out loud for the audience to get it. But Harrison Ford was the Jason Priestley to Chadwick Boseman's guy who works at Tamale Heaven.
Oh, Devo.
Yeah, Devo. I couldn't remember the actor's name. And I'd used actors' names for all the other ones. So I kind of
that's fair. God damn
it. But there was so much white guy explaining racism to black guy in this movie because it's either that or Jackie Robinson has to stand up and say, I'm a little nervous about this because of this reason, this reason, this reason, this reason. which is like narratively, and it's just super clunky. But it's real weird to me that Brand Tricky was like, now here are a few things you may not have considered about why this is going to be difficult.
But I'm sorry to interrupt, but it speaks to the fact that it does need to be white people who know better educating white people who don't know better, because it gets exhausting for Black people, for anyone of the global majority, to always have to be educating.
Right. Yeah. It's not my job to teach you not to be an asshole to me.
Yeah. You know, because any other film, hell, even in Hidden Figures, which wasn't many years, around this, but like, she still had to give a moment to explain, like, I have been running to the other bathroom because I'm not allowed to use the one here. And it's like, can no one else really see this? Does it always have to be the Black person going through it?
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, I guess there's no great way to do it, like to explain it narratively, but there was a little bit of Brandon yelling about racism at Black people in the setup to this. Like, it struck me because we had just talked about it.
He was hella sanctimonious too with DeRocher or whatever. Like, the Bible has something to say about adultery too.
Oh yeah.
Calm down, Ricky.
I know. It looked like he was having an all right time. Let the man be.
Right. At least it's not with the can of beans.
Yeah. To wrap it up, talking about the EST of this. My EST is related to what I was just talking about. That this is the most present day historical biopic I think we could show.
Yeah.
It could, because it's not like those things aren't still happening. Not in the same way, not to the same degree, certainly not, I don't know. I mean, online it is to the same degree, which is not, I mean, that's not the same as Alan Tudyk screaming from, and I apologize because I like Alan Tudyk a lot. That's why I know who he is. Yeah. And I don't care to know the name of the guy he was playing. Ben Chapman. So it's just Alan Tudyk screaming.
But Ben Chapman is a shithead, so.
Yeah, he seems to be. He seems to be not a great guy. I don't remember where I was going with Alan Tudyk.
Add something to that, because I think another poignant scene is when you see a white son watching his dad.
That was brutal.
It's so brutal. You see him watching his father join in with the angry mob, saying, yelling slurs at Jackie, and then the son joins in and kind of looks like, I did all right? Yeah,
he's looking for his dad's approval.
And the thing is, like, that still happens.
Oh, of course it does.
And I think that's why they had that scene in there, because granted, I think this came out in 2013.
Yeah, you're right, 2013.
Okay, so we weren't quite in the bad times yet.
Right.
But they were certainly on the horizon. And I feel like this scene was forewarning.
It was also the girl in the red coat.
Ooh.
Like, that's what this was the equivalent of in this movie. You're shown this cute kid, and you're shown the experience of going to the ballpark with your dad for the first time. And, oh boy, I sure hope I see whoever get 3 hits or whatever they were talking about before the game.
I think you mentioned Pee Wee Reese.
I didn't hear it when they said it.
My ears were out for the Louisville boy.
You're just you're shown him and shown the hopeful possibility of a day at the ballpark. It's the most Americana thing you could have. And then they rip it in half and show you the horror. And it's an incredibly powerful moment in the movie. Yeah. Because you're shown on one hand the little 10-year-old black kid who is so inspired and who in real life became a Major League Baseball player. Like that's, it's based on a real kid. So you're shown the impact that Jackie Robinson has on a generation of kids, of black kids. And then you're shown the impact that the reaction to Jackie Robinson had on a generation of a subset of white kids.
Yeah.
And it's brutal.
Oh, God.
It's really tough. But in my connection to present day, the most present day things about this movie, aside from the online trollery being the Alan Tudyk standing on the sideline shouting things at people. Did you see this story about how Jackie Robinson's statue had been stolen?
Yes.
Yeah, they made an arrest yesterday.
What?
And best part, the reason, money.
Yep.
It wasn't racially motivated. It was they wanted the statue so that they could melt it down and sell the metal.
I hope you're not hearing that, by the way.
Oh, I saw a little flashy.
They're coming for me.
There. No, you've been talking things.
No, I saw that, and just we've had too much synchronicity with this and the sister podcast. I'm like, what is happening?
Yeah. The synchronicities are what it's all about.
Feet
it means you're doing the right stuff.
Feet left alone have not been that iconic since the Wicked Witch of the East's feet.
Those were tough. Tough move for the slippers.
What a rare moment to be like, I'm glad it wasn't racially motivated, but really, did you have to take that statue?
I know, yeah. And it's probably the easiest one to. I don't know what it was made out of. Metal.
I know from this is a side story. My maternal grandmother, like her childhood home when she finally got to visit it again, was like completely raided of like all
pipes.
The copper.
Yeah.
Yeah, because of copper. And I was like, that's insane.
Yeah, there's a lot of money to be made in selling stolen copper, apparently.
The more I guess.
Answered all your questions is money.
I hate it so much.
Yeah, it wouldn't be so objectionable if it wasn't so true.
Yeah. I think for me, I'm sorry, did you
No.
on your EST?
Nope. Yeah, give me your EST.
I feel like this is one of the, if not the truest baseball movie we have.
Interesting. Okay.
Just because I feel like we get better about writing biopics. We get better about writing about moments in history.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to think we get better about writing in general, but especially on the tough stuff, because hell, if this had been written in the 90s even, there would have been some there would have still been some cheesy, awe-inspiring thing that Jackie says.
Right.
That
haven't we all overcome racism now? Good job, us.
Yeah, it would. Yeah. The kid with his dad, that scene would not have happened.
Right. Yeah. No, I agree.
Mr. Ricky would have just been only telling this story about his friend.
Right.
Or not even his friend, his teammate. I'm not going to give him that much credit. So yeah, I think truest, but then I'm also going to put up toughest because I had to stop the movie halfway through and go get a drink. I was like, this is rough.
It's a lot.
I've seen it before.
Right.
It's supposed to be rough. You know, that is the point. Yeah. And that is something we forget so often anymore when we're taking in art of any kind. Like, you are supposed to feel things.
Right. Yep, that's the whole point.
I
agree.
Fend you off from this thing.
No, this you need to see these things and know that they're there. You know, I think that's interesting. I think you're 100% right about if this had been made in the 90s, it would have been a much cheesier affair.
Well, and now that I'm thinking about it, A League of Their Own. I love that movie, but how disappointing is it that we only get one black woman from the sidelines throwing a ball?
Right.
And they're like, oh shit, she can throw. And that's
Right.
it.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that movie was, that wasn't about the breaking of racial barriers. That was gender barriers. They were pretty solidly focused.
We couldn't have intersectional content yet.
No. I'll say this, though. Marla Hooch, what a ball player!
What do you recommend? A lot of night games.
You know, the best part about that movie is that it's a movie about women baseball, and my favorite parts of that movie are all about Tom Hanks's dick.
No!
They are. That peeing scene is hilarious. Like, gee, mister, that was some good peeing.
By the way, I really liked you in The Wizard of Oz.
And then there's the scene when the manager comes up to him, or the owner, and he said, "That was a good job managing that game there, Jimmy. Especially like that move in the 5th inning where you scratched your balls for an hour." Like, I can't not. And then avoid the clap, Jimmy Dugan. Like,
yeah. And that speaks to how they didn't think those women could sell a movie. So what they do, they brought in Tom Hanks. They made his character iconic. Well, he made the character iconic, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that comes down to they just didn't think those women could sell the movie, which is so unfortunate.
But those are also 3 really great jokes. I mean, those are really, really great jokes. I mean, I couldn't even get through I enjoyed that move in the 5th inning.
You think there ain't men in this country who ain't seen your bosoms?
That's right.
See, now I got to come up with like 5 jokes from the women.
Yeah, no, there's jokes there, but that move in the 5th inning where you scratched your balls for an hour is so funny. That is so funny.
I always forget that. Is it George Strathan?
Oh, Strathern. Yeah. I mispronounce his last name all the time.
So good.
He's really good. Yeah. So, A League of Their Own, great movie. Love it.
Watch it next month for Women's History Month.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. And watch it every month because it's a great movie.
Yeah, that's true. But also watch
see how it works is the train moves, not the station.
Oh my God. Yeah, your favorite.
Jealous? I love John Lovitz. All right. Did we do it?
I think we did. And I quite personally liked this new layout. I
did too.
It helped talking about this because I'll be honest, I don't think I would have had near as much to say about Beach Blanket Bingo.
You're selling Frankie and Annette short, I think. But
they can handle it. They're dead.
All I know is that once again, we have proved my theory that everything comes back to Aaron's spelling.
Hell yeah.
So until next time, Boozemeisters.
Cheers.
Cheers.